So after reading the first 3 trades of Mike Grell's Green Arrow, I did not expect the quality to continue. But I couldn't have been more wrong, because this comic touches on something that most companies wouldn't even dare talk about. And the strange part is, most people haven't even heard of this comic. So before I get into how much of an underrated gem this comic is, I just want to say that I do have a Patreon up and running. So if you want to jump over there and support the channel, you can. It would be greatly appreciated, as you probably know, because of all of the people trying to destroy my channel. So if any of you choose to support me, I cannot thank you enough. So after picking up volume 3 of Mike Grell's Green Arrow, The Trial of Oliver Queen, I did not expect this comic to really be that good, because the first 3 volumes I've read have been some of my favorite comics out there. So I wasn't really expecting anything that big. And to be honest, this volume isn't that big. It doesn't have some massive story arc that changed the character for generations. But it does have to be stated that this is 100% worth reading, and it covers some touchy subjects. This entire volume was filled throughout with great art and excellent writing, building more into Seattle that we saw in the Longbow Hunters, and creating more of a world that could be adapted into a movie or a TV show and be well acclaimed by most people. Like I've mentioned in previous videos, this isn't some superhero world where there's evil supervillains and the heroes are all great people. Instead, Oliver Queen doesn't have some super secret identity, and he's not living in a perfect world. He's living in the real world, because Mike Grell at the time was living in Seattle and basically adapted what he was seeing from the newspaper headlines onto the page. And that is on full display in this volume, where we get to see some really gruesome things that build this version of Seattle into a place darker than Gotham. Halfway through the volume, we get this 2-issue story arc titled The Horseman. And from the first page, this story is already an underrated monolith of kick-ass. Basically, there's this guy named the Horseman. He looks like Mad Max, the Road Warrior, and he's going around to all these biker bars, like a vigilante weeding through the hordes of these scumbags to find one girl that he's looking for. We don't really know why he's looking for her and why he wants to find her so bad, but we do know that for sure, that he is determined. And to be honest, this guy could have had his own solo comic run, riding a chopper through the country of America, dealing out justice, then coming to the rainy hellscape that is Seattle, also dealing out vengeance. Of course, because this is Green Arrow and you're not reading Spider-Man or Batman, this story takes a really dark turn. We learn that this girl that the Horseman has been looking for is just an innocent girl that has been roped into the seedy underworld and clubs of Seattle. Now, I can't really show much of this on screen, but basically, this woman doesn't want to comply. She wants to get out of that seedy life. And the people who she's working for don't really want that. So they get rid of her in a way that is truly appalling. And the readers at the time took massive offense, blaming it on Mike Grell, saying that he created this sick end for this woman. He didn't just randomly come up with this dark storyline. He was just showing you what was happening at the time. And eventually Green Arrow and the police force find this crucified woman. And Green Arrow drops the whole pacifist socialist mentality that Denny O'Neil created. Instead takes up this vindictive, vengeful code of justice. What ensues is one of the best issues to come out of the character of Green Arrow. The dialogue and writing is badass, yet grounded in this grim reality. And the art is just plain awesome. And you could probably tell all of this just from looking at the issue cover because of how goddamn metal it is. Look at that right there. You're telling me you prefer the Denny O'Neil version where he's this pacifist running around fighting for the rights of black people exclusively, compared to this where we get to see Green Arrow and the literal Road Warrior fight a gang war in the rainy streets of Seattle with no hesitation about pacifism or are we really doing the right thing, because Green Arrow doesn't live in that stupid mentality. And the issue takes an even darker turn where we get to the moment that I've been making this video about. After fighting back to back in this gang war, Ollie and the Horseman discuss what is actually going on in this situation. The art is amazing throughout as the Horseman tells the story of this girl, and he actually reveals why he's been looking for her. He explains that this girl got in with the wrong people a long time ago, and certain people that she trusted betrayed her and sold her as a slave across the border, and this is where she's ended up. The Horseman utters the phrase white slavery, which immediately is extremely controversial. But the best part is, instead of complaining about some liberal utopia, Oliver Queen is shocked, but takes in the information because this is the real world, and this comic deals with real issues. Most people will probably be shaking their heads, annoyed at this talk of white slavery, and although it doesn't delve too deep into it, it is a clandestine subject that most people wouldn't even touch off of. And although this might be in a different context, the mention of white slavery is extremely impactful, especially when reading as a white Irish person. A lot of people don't want to mention it, but white people, especially Irish people, were slaves too. It really is a subject that most people want to stay away from and never even talk about. But the fact that Mike Grell put it in here, and not as some ironic thing or depicting the Horseman as some insane lunatic, but as a genuine issue to tackle, I respect this greatly. And this is a common thread throughout the entire run of Green Arrow. Mike Grell didn't appease to the lazy Marxism of DC. Instead, he created a story that was actually realistic. Almost every issue touches on a brand new subject that does happen in the real world. We see young, idiotic, neo-Nazi punks that Green Arrow has to take down almost every issue, but it's not biased in the way that it shows us that they're the only people who are in Seattle. It's based in the real dynamic of the fact that there's also a massive horde of Black Panthers that are racist towards white people. But it is just as topical as it was back then, right now, because as we speak, there are groups of people who believe certain ideologies and are just idiot punks who don't really know what they're talking about. And on the other side, if you just look at the past few years with the BLM movement, funded by people we can't really talk about, armies of racist black people were out on the streets, burning, looting, and going after white people exclusively. So when you read Mike Grell's Green Arrow from 1988 and you see the same dynamic, it is much more refreshing than hearing about some stupid utopia where we have to care about one group of people but not the other side. And this volume ends with a storyline called The Trial of Oliver Queen that embraces a new version of the character, one that left behind all the childish liberal ideas and instead embraced a stone-cold attitude about justice, about the government system of law, and about how most of the time it can be insufficient. It can imprison the wrong people or let out the people that should be behind bars. And this comic is not afraid to talk about any of it. So any chance you get, dive into this underrated gem. And if any of you out there watching know of any other comics that take on the same mentality of justice and ditch the corrupt Marxism, then please let me know. And if you got a problem, go complain to your boyfriend.